strike hard if needed. Meanwhile, tensions between Moscow and Kiev appear to be intensifying. CNN's Diana Magnay is in Donetsk and joins us now live. And Diana, it looks like the Ukrainian troops are now being pushed back by pro-Russian rebels, and reports that Russian soldiers and tanks are involved.
Ukrainian troops do appear to be on the defensive and have been for the last few days, Andrew. That is certainly true. And the allegation, of course, from NATO and Ukraine is that the reason they are being pushed back to the extent that they are and that the pro-Russian rebels are gaining the ground that they are is because they are being assisted by Russian units on the ground and by Russian armour. Now, I think one point that is important to make about NATO's announcement today, which will be discussed further at the NATO summit at the end of this week, is that this isn't a unit that they want to create to deploy against Russian aggression in eastern Ukraine. It is to defend the Eastern European NATO members, the Baltic states and Poland, who fear this Russian aggression in this country and fear that it might spill over into theirs. And I think that is an important distinction. But returning to the situation on the ground here, as you say, Ukrainian forces being pushed back. And I want to turn also to the humanitarian situation, to the suffering of normal people in the rebel strongholds of Luhansk especially, but also in Donetsk, where I am. Let's take a look at the very real face of human suffering that we were all witness to today. Petro Poroshenko will have a hard time winning back hearts and minds in this city. As the people of Donetsk sweep up the debris of their homes and livelihoods, they are hardened against a president they say is killing his own people. We are Ukrainian, but they kill us, this man says. So we probably need our own country, because these people in Kiev, they are not brothers for us. The shells hit these homes days ago, but the tears are still fresh.
We live on the ground. It was so hard for 2 weeks, especially for 27, 28, 29th. But only today it's quiet. Sorry, I need to go.
2 people were killed outside this block of flats last Wednesday. One of them was a 50-year-old woman, the other a 34-year-old woman. Her husband, who won't talk to us, he says he's in shock, managed to make it down to the cellar with their little child, but she just didn't have the time. And this is a story that repeats itself over and over in dozens of apartment blocks, with civilians being killed by the constant shelling around Donetsk. The city's trauma hospital is filled with the civilian wounded, shrapnel embedded in the flesh and bone of market sellers' legs, the broken limbs of pensioners far too old to run. There was one war, and this is the second war, this old lady tells me. I was born in 1940 in World War II, and I will probably die before this war is over. Valentina Popova in the next-door ward lost her leg and her arm to indiscriminate artillery shells. Switching to the Ukrainian language, she makes a heart-rending plea to the president. We used to dance, sing, do everything in Ukrainian, she says. Poroshenko, Mr. Poroshenko, please listen to us. Why don't you understand your people? Be a man, be human. Please stop your aggression. Stop this war. But there is little sign of that. This once thriving city is now half empty, its railway station bombed. The forces unleashed by this conflict, greater perhaps than Mr. Poroshenko can control. Now, there is a nightly curfew here in Donetsk, Andrew. We've just heard the rattle of small arms fire, but the last 2 days have actually been very quiet in terms of artillery shelling, really not much of it at all. As we were driving through town, though, earlier on, we saw a school that had been hit. We saw one of the hospitals in town that had been hit by the artillery shells of the last weeks or so. And today, Andrew, is the first day of school for Ukrainian children. And the Ukrainian government, Kiev, says that some 900 schools have not been able to go back today. That's around 10,000 children because of this continued onslaught. And let's not forget, Andrew, also that this is the situation now on the 1st of September, but this country gets extremely cold in the winter. Mr. Putin has his fingers on the gas and on whether Ukraine gets that gas or not. And that is really a time when you will see the humanitarian situation deteriorate drastically. Andrew?
And still no end in sight to the